Let's get the record. All right, it's 7:02 on March 13th, 2025, and I'm calling this meeting of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission to order. This meeting's being recorded. We've got Mayor and Jan and Bob. I don't see Scott. Is he not coming? Let me look on my phone. Oh, I think I just got a text from him. Oh, he says he's waiting to be let in. Oh, Mateo is not here. So. There we go. All right. Yeah, Mateo's not here tonight, but he's still going to do the minutes from the recording. So that's good. Hey, Scott.
Hey there.
Hey, Jan.
Hello.
All right, so I already called the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is comments from me. And the only thing that I was thinking what to talk about, and the only thing I can say is that I'm part of a regional group that's working on a MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant. It's a Shutesbury, Pelham, Amherst, Belchertown, and Hadley. It started with a group called Fort River Forward. So it's all the towns that feed the Fort River, and it is for culvert assessment. We're asking for funding for basically hiring and training college kids, UMass kids mostly, but from the other colleges too, to train them and do the culvert assessment. That's the North Atlantic Conductivity Cooperative. It's a assessment procedure that I think was developed at UMass. That's become a big thing. There's a big database where you learn how to assess culverts based on that, and then you also take that data and you enter it into a database. So anyway, the grant is for that, for funding for that. Now Shutesbury already had assessments done, but the way I understand it is that the data wasn't entered into that database yet. So part of this money would be going to for taking those assessments that were done and adding a bit to them, I think, and then updating all the data into the database. So we'll see. The grant application's due April 4th. And that's all I have for comments from the chair. If anybody has, and we haven't met for a bit, so if anybody has any questions or comments or anything, let me know. Next on the agenda is to review and vote on the February 13th minutes. So does anybody have any changes or additions to the minutes from February 13th? No. No. All right, I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
I motion to approve those minutes.
I'll do the second.
Great. Fox?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Rowan?
Aye.
Douglas?
Aye.
And Wilson? Aye. Great. Actually, before we move on from general comments and stuff, Bob, do you have any, Bob or Mayor, both of you guys went to MACC, right?
Yeah.
Was
We
there
did.
anything you want to share?
I'd like to say it's always a tremendously reinvigorating thing to go to with you're in rooms, an entire campus with other conservation agents and environmental folk. It's a great experience. I guess my takeaway was in one of the classes I took, there's a new grant out there that provides seed money for other grants, because oftentimes to get an MVP grant, you have to show research already. This new grant gives you that seed money. It's not very much, $3,000 or so, to begin that process. I thought that might be something that would be helpful for different things that are coming up in Shutesbury. Mayor, what was your impression?
Oh, I thought it was so interesting. I went to a lecture on beavers and because I thought that was so, something that continually comes up. So,
Yeah,
um
that's a good
um
Shutesbury topic.
and then I went to the legal the one on like recent law changes in the case law. And then what was the other one that was kind of memorable? Oh shoot. Um Well, they handed out all kinds of tchotchkes. I love that too. I mean, I got a calendar. I got like I can identify every tree out there. It was just the energy. Like these people were just nice people that really like care about the environment. So it was so nice to be in that crowd, it's just it was really cool. But yeah, so there was something else vernal pools. Oh my gosh. Like I learned all about the vernal pools and that was so interesting. And then I did one of the basic like kind of like what it would be the basic training that I should do next. So yeah, it was great. Can't wait to go again next year.
Good. No, that's also good. I'm so glad you guys went and that you, Mayor, for your first time, you enjoyed it that much. And I haven't been for a number of years, so I bet it's even bigger than when I went like 3 or 4 years ago. So that's great. All right. Number 3, site visits update. Jan, do you have anything?
I do not. I suppose we should probably get out to the library here, if not this week, then next week after the rain, see what happens.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could get over there and just let us all know the date and hopefully maybe some of us can join. I think I sent you an email about setting up another visit somewhere where there had been some erosion.
No, I don't, I
You
didn't see it.
get it? Oh, all right. I better resend. And then, so I'll resend that. And then we did, I don't think it's been sent around yet, but we're gonna have a notice of, it's an RDA. The electronic's been submitted, but we're waiting for the hard copy, but that'll come to our next meeting. And we'll need to do a site visit, for that too. So maybe we can do those both on the same day, but I'll forward that.
What was the last one?
It was a erosion sedimentation situation that we were gonna check out. I can't believe, let me see, my sent.
Maybe I overlooked it. I don't know.
No, that's not it. Anyway, I'll find it. If it didn't get sent, I'll resend. Anyway, that's 2 site visits that we should probably do before our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and then item 4, land management update, Scott.
Well, I'm actually not sure I have the latest. Beth, you covered us for the presentation on the grant applications, and it seemed that they were appreciative of us we put in 3, right? One for top of the lake and then 2 for Southbrook, both a full and a partial. But I haven't heard anything more since the presentation had been made. It seemed like they were appreciative of having options to choose from.
Yeah, they specifically mentioned that they appreciated us putting forward that second option for Southbrook that basically was, saying we'll do some of the construction this year and just because we know it's such a large budget, we'll put it off. So yeah, they appreciated that sort of like just effort on our part. They also, for both projects, seem to be they like that both projects were continuation of previous MVP grants that were issued. That sort of helped for them to think that we should continue with the work that we're doing at both locations because they're both sort of based on plans that were funded, by MVP previously. So yeah, no, it went really well. It was fine. There
Good.
weren't that many questions. And I guess it's the 20th. Yeah, a week from
Good.
today. A week from today,
Um,
we vote.
Did they need anyone from, do we need to go there, Beth, for the vote for the 20th or?
I mean, I'll be there anyway. I can't vote on ours, but I would be voting on the others. But no, I don't think there's not really another chance for applicants to present. It's
Okay.
more, discussion by CPC and voting.
Good. Well, fingers crossed.
I know, right? Definitely.
But that's all I think that we had for the land management part. So end of report.
Okay, great. All right, what time is it? Oh, we actually had 2 more minutes before we can open the public hearing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Well, I've got you all here, and especially Scott. I think it might be fun to do a Mayor took the vernal pool class to do a invite people to a vernal pool certification, where we kind of can teach people about vernal pools. And I was wondering if you had any knowledge of a vernal pool that might be on public land or land that's has easy parking, that we could set something like that up.
Are you asking me or Scott? Me?
Both of you. We'll start with you, Beth.
Right. I think you emailed me about this and I was thinking Southbrook must have in there somewhere, must have some. I see Miriam has her hand up. I think she
Yeah,
had asked
I have
to
a
have one.
comment.
Yes.
So yes, there is a large vernal pool on Southbrook, because we had talked about rerouting a trail to go away from where that little bridge is down low. There's like a bridge, and we were talking about rerouting a trail uphill past a vernal pool that we looked at. But I also just wanted to share with the commission that I have a beautiful vernal pool that I'm hoping to certify with NHESP this year. I've been collecting data for the last 5 years, and I would love to have the commission come and look at it and certify it as well. And I would be happy to arrange that with you.
Great. I will reach out to you offline on both of those. Scott, what's the parking like in that? Did you say Southbrook?
Yeah, I think where Miriam is talking about, you're talking about the one closer to the town beach, aren't you, Miriam? Like down from there.
Well, it's uphill from the beach. So when you go down that steep hill and then you go over a little bridge. Do you know what I'm talking about? If you take the trail that's coming off of Locks Pond Road, do you know what I'm talking about? That trail. We had looked at a bypass for that, and I'm sure we have it mapped. I'm sure that it was in our emails. There was a map that Liam Cregan had suggested, a bypass for it that went by a vernal pool, and I think he even located the exact location of that vernal pool. But that certainly is one.
So to answer your question, Bob, I think, there isn't great parking off of Fox Pond, but there is good parking down towards like where the town beach is, and that all
Both the
connects
boat launch, yeah.
together. But I might do a little thinking on it. There might be some closer to some parking there. I walk that all the time. I just need to pay attention to where they may be. So let me do a little thinking.
Certainly a beautiful spot. Yeah, that's one of my faves. All right, great. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Now it is 7:16. So we can open our public hearing for bundled NOI for the Shutesbury Highway Department. And I think there's a few people here to present. So whoever would like to go first, go for it.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Rhodes. I'm the planner at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. I'm joined here with two other colleagues that I'll introduce. I just want to note, I did talk to Dave, the highway super, and he said he would be here, but I'm not sure where he is. So hopefully he will join us before this is over. So I am a planner at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, and I'm joined here with Andrea Donlin, who also works at the Franklin Council of Governments, and Angela Panaccioni from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, our counterpart in the Pioneer Valley Regional Planning Agency. We have a MVP grant that we were awarded through MVP to do a gravel roads manual toolkit to help our local towns here in Western Mass figure out ways to better maintain their unpaved roads. And so as part of that, we have been working with partner towns to test out elements of this unpaved roads manual to make sure that it's working, that it's doing what we're supposed to do. And what that goal is to create a manual and toolkit that the towns themselves, the highway supers, can do the maintenance themselves without having to go get engineers and do expensive work. That better maintains the road, keeps the dirt on the roads and not into our streams and wetlands. And so as part of that work to date, we have already identified, mapped the most vulnerable unpaved roads in Shutesbury. And we're going to be going out this spring with Dave and his crew to assess those most vulnerable roads and identify ways to make them more resilient and less conducive to erosion, and using practices that he can do with his staff and with the resources that he has in town. And so as part of that, we wanted to file a bundled notice of intent to make his job easier, but also just for future all maintenance work, not only to make his job easier, but streamline his work, but to make sure he's doing it in a way that is protective of our natural environmental resources here in town. We filed the bundle notice of intent on behalf of the highway department. And as one of our partners, Angela from PVPC, she is an expert on bundle notice of intents. And so she's going to walk us through really the details of what this is for, and what Dave and his crew are going to be doing. Angela, I know I think we have a half hour on the agenda, so we don't need to go into too much detail unless the commission would like to hear as much as they want, answer questions. But if you would like to give them an overview, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I can cut some of my slides. Beth, am I able to share my screen?
Let's see. All right, I made you host. That seemed to be the only option. So then when you're done, you can make me host.
Okay. Let me pull it up. All right, everyone can see?
Yep.
All right, excellent. So again, this is a notice of intent for routine maintenance, repair, and it should also say improvement. So under this permit, work can only occur within the riverfront, bordering land subject to flooding, non-jurisdictional drainage channels, ditches, and water conveyances, and the buffer zone. It may not occur within BVW, banks, land underwater, or any areas that have priority or estimated habitat. The last part should not be a problem for Shutesbury because there was only one section of road that showed up in that polygon. And after talking with Beth, I believe it's actually a trail. So again, just some general information from MACC's buffer zone manual. What we're talking about, of course, land underwater, the banks, so nothing can occur in there. But when we get into the buffer zone, riverfront area, bordering land subject to flooding on the bottom, work can occur in those. When we went through it, we addressed the stormwater management standards. So as this is maintenance and improvements, it does meet the majority of the standards, 1, 2, 3. So there will be no new untreated stormwater, no new point source discharges. Follow the recommended BMPs provided. If the highway department does, then you will achieve lower post-development peak flow rates than pre-development. Groundwater recharge will be accomplished. Everything we are designing will meet the 80% TSS removal. No work will occur in land use with higher potential for pollutant loads or critical areas. The big one is the redevelopment that I will get into next. So to meet the criteria of redevelopment, it's limited to replacement, retrofit, improvement of existing structures. So examples of that would be grading and resurfacing within the existing roadway. This should say drainage culvert replacement, catch basin cleaning, repair of swales and ditches, retrofits to existing stormwater that would essentially remove a point source discharge and replace it with an infiltration BMP. And any new BMPs to mitigate stormwater will solely be to improve water quality, reduce peak discharge rates, and promote infiltration and recharge. The final standards, erosion and sediment controls, are included in this. We do not currently provide an operation and maintenance plan, but that is being developed with the Unpaved Roads Toolkit. So that will be provided to the towns that are participating. And of course, there are no illicit discharges. This is just a kind of general overview of projects to be conducted. Grading, road repairs, fixing potholes, ditch maintenance, swale maintenance, mowing, installing check dams, maintaining existing ditches and swales, cleaning catch basins, planting native species, removing invasive species. For culverts that are designated as a road stream crossing and not solely for stormwater, DPW could do minor repairs such as fixing the head wall or flared ends, and also cleaning them out and maintaining any beaver deceivers or water level control devices that exist within the culvert or in proximity of the culvert. Placements, again, the cleaning of the culverts, maintenance of all sorts of stormwater, detention basins, catch basins, forebays, does allow road signage and guardrail replacement. removal of debris, maintaining turnouts, maintaining splash pads, maintaining riprap channels. Again, I have the beaver deceivers, vegetation management, embankment stabilization, planting of natives, pruning, grading, especially as it relates to unpaved roads. Limited work on bridges, focus specifically on maintaining the existing deck and abutments, but nothing that gets down into the water or the water course. Any stone wall repairs, jute mats, level spreaders, water bars. Projects not permitted would be those that are in area with a high potential for pollutant loads, any new roads, conversion from grass to stone, anything that may require bypass pumping, also any road, stream, culvert replacement that is on a perennial or intermittent stream. So jurisdictional culvert replacements cannot be covered under the bundled permit, but drainage culvert replacements can. And herbicide treatment. Ooh. Then we get into the work protocol. So this is the process DPW and the Conservation Commission should follow. It's purely recommended. You could establish your own work protocol with the DPW, but typically every year between March and May, when they have an idea of the project they will be completing the next fiscal year, they would provide a list to the Concom. Typically, the Concom would do a desktop review of sensitive areas. And again, the highlight of that one is just ensuring that the work is not occurring in a perennial stream or priority habitat. So those are the big evaluation things, because that would make it not permittable. Then you would have an on-site meeting. It could be with the whole commission, a member, staff if applicable, just to kind of go over what is being proposed and discuss with your DPW on where to install erosion controls. When they begin work, they will provide 48-hour notice to the Concom via, I believe we specified through email because that was easiest. When they start the project, a member and or staff can review the site, but doesn't necessarily have to if they're familiar enough with the site and the project already. Then of course, DPW would install erosion and sediment controls. During your site review at the start of work, you would want to make sure that you specify areas of where they will be stockpiling any material and make sure they're providing you with information on where said materials will go after. So, for instance, if they clean out a beaver deceiver and leave a pile of debris on the side of the road in close proximity to the stream, that is not ideal. So we want to make sure that they're aware that those materials need to go in the back of a dump truck to somewhere that is not resource area or buffer zone. And then at the end, any site stabilization that's required. Then there would be sort of a informal project completion review approval by the commission. Since it's a bundled NOI and encompasses many projects, you wouldn't issue your traditional certificate of compliance. So it's recommended that the commission in its meeting minutes formally approve and have documentation that the work project was completed in accordance with the bundled notice of intent. This goes over the minor exempt activities for buffer zone and riverfront. So vegetation cutting, sign installation, and oh, excuse me, sorry. Work having to do with flood control. Sorry, I went too quick. And they also included an ecological restoration limited project because if you are doing invasive removal without herbicides, so either hand pulling or a different mechanical option, that would fall under the ecological restoration limited project. So it does allow the removal of invasives as long as it is strictly mechanical. And that's only limited to roadways. So I'll specify that. I'm going to skip all this because it kind of goes through just standard operating procedures for the various tasks. They are provided in the notice of intent, but quickly, typical maintenance activities that were covered include mowing, catch basin cleaning, swale, ditch, and drainage channel maintenance, repair and maintenance of splash pads, rock aprons, and plunge pools, repair and maintenance of turnouts, drainage culvert cleaning and replacement, check dam construction and maintenance, vegetation pruning and removal, street sweeping, roadway grading, and bridge maintenance. To ensure the project is being performed to meet the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act, we have included these mitigation measures. They mostly deal with making sure erosion and sediment controls are installed and inspected. If DPW is contracting out to a different firm, say they use Palmer Paving to redo a road, or Mike Callahan to install and maintain beaver deceivers. We would just want to make sure DPW is aware that the contractor needs a copy of the order of conditions. It needs to abide by it. Again, any disturbed areas should be restored. The commission has the right to require additional erosion controls if needed. Again, the work is limited to buffer zone, BLSF, riverfront, and any non-jurisdictional water course. Too quick. The project does meet all the performance standards, and there's no potential for any sort of adverse impact. And again, any project that they do as specified in section 12, the Conservation Commission will be notified by email 48 hours prior. So, in conclusion, there will be no alteration or impacts to resource areas. Some of them may be very temporary in nature due to the limited project provision, but nothing will be permanent. There's no increase in peak rates of runoff, no fill, no changes of floodplain elevation, no new point source discharges, site work and construction plans do include erosion and sediment controls. There's appendix at the back that has generic conditions and generic BMPs on how to install them. And all work is to improve the existing roadway and maintain and improve the drainage on the roadways to meet the interests of the act. And the overall goal is it will help build relationships with Concom and DPW and help protect resource areas in the future by allowing more oversight, collaboration, and cooperation between the two departments. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I flew through it, so.
Thank you. That was good. I'll start off. I'm sure the commission has lots of questions. One thing off the bat is that the resource areas. So we have what's called the AURA, the adjacent upland resource area, which really is the 100-foot buffer, and we consider that a resource area. So the 100-foot buffer to bank and to land underwater, and that. But I just want to clarify, I guess, that would be, in this situation, that would be treated similar to the buffer zone. So it would be sort of on the list of areas where work can occur. So there's that. And then I think I saw Mark's comment, and I'm sure this comes up a lot with other towns, is sort of the definition of a stream for, like of a drainage swale versus it being a jurisdictional stream. Similar to other towns, our definition of a stream under our local bylaw is simply a channel, something that moves in a gradient within a defined channel. It doesn't have to originate in a jurisdictional area or flow into or out of a jurisdictional area. It's just simply, which I know other towns have that kind of definition too. So that makes it a little trickier to, I think, define what is sort of a man-made drainage swale versus a jurisdictional stream. Again, I love the bundled NOI, and I want to move this forward. These are just sort of like little questionable areas, I think, that I'm bringing up. So that's,
So,
yeah.
I have a question for you. So typically if Mass DOT would submit something to you, they'd give you the whole spiel, right? Like, we don't have to follow your bylaws. I was kind of going under that assumption, and I apologize. So if you want me to rework it a little, so the town has to follow the bylaws, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was considering this as a bundle NOI that was being filed under both the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw. So yeah, that might make sense to almost change the narrative part of the bundled NOI to reflect the bylaw a little bit. Would be helpful, I think. And it's really just the sort of the beginning part where you're talking about resource areas. The rest of it, I think a lot of it can stay the same, but that would be helpful.
And part of this too is we do have funds set aside to go out in the field with DPW and a Concom member to review and address some of the key concerns, such as what would be a jurisdictional stream and what wouldn't, and also what would be a jurisdictional culvert and what wouldn't be.
Great.
Has Megan, when FERCog did the culvert assessment, did they produce a map of all of them or just the report?
We have a map.
Do you think it would be good if we shared it and included it as an attachment to this NOI? Because it should clarify, right, which ones are just drainage and which ones are actually stream crossings as a starting point.
So we mapped anything that has a pipe with water in it on a town road. We will have to go, so it depends on what everyone's definition of a stream is. So we can classify it, but we'll need to figure that definition out, because right now it just shows any pipe with water under a town-owned road.
Thank you. Beth, would you prefer we just include that as any pipe under town road so we're aware of them?
Yeah, I think that would be great for the culverts.
I guess I have a question about that. If what we're really talking about is, like the pipes under driveways and things like that, is that what we're most worried about when we're saying a drainage culvert?
No, we're more worried about cross culverts in roads that may just transport water through a swale, or that would potentially connect wetlands on either side, but isn't officially a culvert for a stream channel or a hydrologic connection. So it's not a perennial stream or an intermittent stream or a hydrologic connection.
But if you're connecting a wetland on one side of the road with the other, it's still a hydrologic connection, no?
Yes. But if you have a drain, so I guess it comes to how you define a drainage swale. And I think what Beth was implying is that as long as it's channelized, it's jurisdictional locally.
Maybe this isn't, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, so we can go right to that if we have to. But I thought you said that you couldn't make the pipe smaller and you couldn't make it bigger, right?
No, you can't make it smaller.
But you could make it bigger.
The goal is to right size it.
Okay.
And that typically means an increase in diameter.
Yes. I just want to make sure I understood that because yes, absolutely. It would seem nowadays we do want to make them bigger if we can, as long as that doesn't screw up whatever the ecosystem has going on, Okay.
Just to clarify what a cross culvert is. So sometimes on an unpaved road, you have a ditch on the side of the road, and particular if the hillside goes upward in elevation, you're going to be gathering water in that ditch, and at some point you want to just disperse the water off the road, but not into a stream or wetland. So sometimes there are it goes into a culvert and crosses underneath the road and then goes into the woods on the other side where it's maybe lower elevation. That's a cross culvert. And those may not be streams. They're often not streams. They're just stormwater drainage culvert.
Okay, that's helpful.
But I think what Beth is getting at is they protect up gradient stream channels. So under the Wetlands Protection Act, a stream is jurisdictional if it comes out of a wetland. But in Shutesbury, if it is like a groundwater seep to like a rocky waterfall down and then hits a wetland, that upgradient portion is still jurisdictional locally and wouldn't be considered a typical drainage channel. Under their local bylaw, it would be a stream crossing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think if, so you said you would kind of look at the bylaw and things. I guess something that I want to check in with the commissioners, if you're gonna, I don't know, rewrite that section a little bit, is that I'm all right with adding the aura as an area where this work can be done, similar to the buffer zone. And I guess I want to see what other commissioners think about that, so that Angela has some direction in that respect. How do other commissioners feel about that?
Yeah, I'm on the same page.
Okay. Good. Just
Yeah,
wanted to check.
you know, certainly, I didn't see the bylaw mentioned in the document, and I think that is key.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize. I shouldn't have assumed, but typically local bylaws tend to not apply to local departments. And if you don't have that as an actual like exemption, that's my fault. And I just went on the assumption and had it meet the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah. No problem. Why don't we just move through? I have just a couple other one area that, you know, it's in here a couple times is the wetland delineation part. There's one section that says that section 7, work activities proposed under this BONI and on future projects require formal field determination of wetland resource areas. Then later it talks about having Conservation Commission do the delineation. And I guess wondering what other towns do with that sort of need, you know, you want the highway folks to go out, but then you also want the resource areas delineated. I guess what's kind of the standard for small towns that don't want to spend a whole lot of money on consultants?
Typically, it would be commission or staff that goes out with the DPW. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be super formal. Like, these are your vegetations, these are your soils, but just, you know, showing where the line is, throwing up a few flags and making sure that that area is protected by erosion controls during work. That's the main goal. Just to make sure it's properly identified, because oftentimes the wetland layer maps miss jurisdictional areas. So always having that local knowledge and eyes on the ground. So what I used to do in Brimfield and Palmer is whenever they'd come up with a project, I'd hop in the truck with the DPW guy, go down the road and sort of stop and be like, okay, wetland, get out, flag the extent around it. It's easier if there's a defined channel. And then, you know, be sure to put erosion controls 30 feet up road and 30 feet down road and encompass the area to prevent any sedimentation or erosion into jurisdictional areas. So that was my process.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's something we could write into the order of conditions, that this is sort of the standard way that we're gonna move forward. I just, yeah, saw it a couple times in here.
Worded differently to give flexibility. Some commissions have much more knowledge and understanding of the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act and what a wetland is than some other commissions. And the focus of this project being really small rural towns that aren't as privileged to have Amherst DPW staff as their chair, who is very familiar with all of it. And they got to go out and do it on their own. So that gives them the ability, if they need to bring somebody in to properly delineate it if the commission feels it's outside their capacity.
Good. Sounds good. Megan has her hand up. Oh, you're muted, Megan.
You're muted.
Sorry, how many times do I do this a day? And I just want to clarify for this. So, if the highway comes and says that they're going to be grading a road and they're staying within, the road surface, and would if they give 48 hours notice to the Concom, they're going to be grading such road, they say, okay, we probably don't need to delineate for that project. That's an acceptable answer for that, or like a mowing if it's within a certain feed in a certain area. They don't need to do this at every project. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, that's 100%
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
I skipped those like 9 or 10 slides just because I wanted to power through my half hour. But they are available, and Beth has the PDF of the PowerPoint to share that goes into more specific details of the standard operating procedures for many routine tasks: mowing, culvert cleaning, turnout cleaning, catch basin, street sweeping, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we've over the years have thought that the best idea would be to get out there and the Concom to help sort of delineate different areas of the town, basically near the roads for DPW, so that they'd have that already on hand, that's a goal.
And I think that's a great goal. And I wish more conservation commissions would do it, because you should be working with your different departments. You're all part of the town. And even though you have different mandates, if you actually sat and talked to each other, you'd realize you have a lot of the same similar goals and missions. It's all about how it's framed. So I love that. There's other towns I know that are like, no, we will never delineate for anybody. And they have to get a professional in, even town projects. And just me, from my years of being an agent, think that's a disservice to the town, but I can also respect the commission's stance on it if they don't feel that they have the capacity to do so.
Okay, then my other questions, so under the suitable projects, the first one, the road surface grading and resurfacing, including change of surface from gravel, dirt to oil and stone or pavement. So out of this big long list of suitable projects, I just have a couple circled where I'm sort of like, and that's one of them, because to me, if you're gonna change a road from dirt, for example, to pavement, to me, that's going to change stormwater drainage quite a bit. And I feel like if that was to happen, it would be a pretty large project in Shutesbury, and I would think a regular NOI would be required for that. I don't know. What do the other commissioners think? I'm on page 8. Page 8 of the NOI's got the suitable projects under a bundled NOI, and it's got a bulleted list.
Do you have the ability to post that on the screen, Beth?
I made you host again.
You did? Okay.
If you want to make me host again, I could pull it up. I don't know what's easy. I
Uh,
think the solution to that is just removing or pavement.
yeah, I agree.
So I will do that in the revised narrative. But I do think it's important to keep in going from straight dirt to clean, layered, properly installed gravel. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be waiver exceptions for small patches of asphalt where you're just doing a particularly vulnerable section? You know, you're not doing the whole road system, but just a small patch
It
without a
depends.
culvert or something, maybe?
So honestly, that'd probably be the worst thing is to pave over the culvert. Because that will just increase the rate of erosion. So it's like it's moving slowly and eroding the dirt road, but if it hits a pavement area, it's just gonna go right to the stream if it's over the culvert. Paving could be, and I've seen it done often on unpaved roads, is they will pave very steep slopes, but stop before they get to the bottom, which is typically where you have your culvert or bridge. And those are the areas that would be prime to install some of the green infrastructure BMPs that are in the back of the NOI. And they're all designed purely for infiltration, whether it be one BMP or a chain. And with talking to Mark, he was okay with it as long as there is, if you have a stream, have a 50-foot setback, or a wetland, a 50-foot setback. So it's not like right in the stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you start to look at the new regulations, it's gonna put 100-foot setback to any critical resource. And one of the biggest ones in Western Mass is cold water fisheries, and they are most impacted by the total suspended solids, which is the dirt. So stopping washouts and all that dirt from getting into those streams is the overall objective. It'll keep them cold. It'll keep them deep. It won't kill trout because the fines get into their gills. So that's kind of the overall objective.
All right. Well, I think it might help to bring up that the list of suitable projects. I'm gonna let you do it, Angela.
Oh, you gotta turn.
I guess we have some exceptions in town where we've paved the drainage path straight to the stream. So that puts the question forward, like if they've got to do something to it and it's already there, are we going to object to that kind of work?
If it's already paved,
Yeah.
no.
So that would be continued on without
It's
consent.
already paved and you're maintaining the existing pavement, then yes, they would just kind of carry on status quo.
Assuming that does less damage than mucking around with it.
Yes.
Well, and then it's just at that point, it's like right now, it's just really maintenance of it, but eventually something like that is a great mitigation or restoration project that could be associated with something else. Like say they had to do a culvert or they had to do some work that needed restoration. We could say, oh, taking out that paved swale and, replacing it with a vegetated swale or something as a mitigation or restoration, but just maintaining it at this point, like changing it at this point, there's no requirement for that. It would be a
Right.
good idea, but
That, yeah, you know, I mean, that's where the water is really shooting into a stream and you're causing erosion where it lands as opposed to necessarily conveying a lot of sediment, although that may also occur.
yeah.
So you wanted me to bring up the suitable list, correct?
Yep.
Might make it easier.
All right, so then the next ones that again are a little questionable is the third and fourth bullets. Because again, they're talking about ditches, and so it comes down to sort of that definition of what is unjurisdictional, what is jurisdictional and what is not jurisdictional, and would. So we can, why don't you could look at the bylaw a little bit and then maybe we can, it's like we're probably gonna continue this to our next meeting. We can talk about that again. Then the next one I was wondering, question is a few bullets down, drainage culvert replacement within constructed drainage system where the culvert is designed primarily for the convenience of stormwater. Yeah. What was I wondering about that? I guess I just feel like culvert replacement, no matter if it's for more of just a stormwater, drainage.
Sorry.
So I have my dog over here wanting to go in and out. Yeah, so replacing a culvert, whether it's for a jurisdictional stream or just a cross culvert, I feel like that's a large enough type project where there could be erosion and things that I feel like a full NOI would be required for that.
Can I ask if just a scenario, what we often see is that a lot of towns have like a 12-inch metal culvert that's just rusted out. It's just for drainage. And then they want to replace it with a plastic one that'll last another 15 or so years. Is that a situation that that's where you would think this would fall in, that they would need a full NOI? I'm just asking for clarification. That's
so.
typically what we
Yeah.
see. That's fine.
I feel like there should be, yeah. But I'm happy to listen to what the rest of the commission thinks.
I'm wondering, Beth, if there should be a size that we allow versus one, anything above a certain size might be more concerning.
Yeah, that's an idea. Just so you know, those are the only bullets that I have questions about or kind of concern about. Might be a good approach, Jan.
That allows you to take care of small drainage culverts that aren't going to have a huge impact on anything versus, the larger ones that are going under roads or doing something more significant.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, we could
So
do.
what if I added with a diameter less than 18 inches? I feel 12's too small and 24 might be too big.
That's what I was going to suggest, 20 or 18.
18 would be okay with me.
I wonder if that's a question we should ask Dave, what the majority of ours are, if they're all 12s and he thinks they should be 20s, or you know what I mean? Or if they're all 20s already, maybe he could provide some feedback on that size issue.
Yeah, I know when we did the assessments that the vast majority were under 20. Probably 80% of them were.
I guess, maybe a different opinion on that. I am wondering, my experience with culverts, I think you hit on this in the presentation, are many of them are undersized already. For passage of stormwaters, especially in light of climate change, and or for aquatic organism passage like fish and salamanders that you have referenced there. And so I just don't want to create an incentive to, are we saying that you'd have to replace it like kind? Because I think oftentimes when we look at it through a different lens, we want to increase the diameter of these conveyances. And to me, I don't have concerns about the replacement of a culvert because it's just, it's just conveying the water through the road. So I'm not sure that I'm as concerned about that part. I think my concerns in reading were more about, I think it was the second bullet, about ditch maintenance and grading and cleaning and mowing. That can have a bigger impact on trust resources in the stream. So maybe I'll stop there, but I didn't have the same concern with this. I just wouldn't want to see us require like kind replacement with undersized culverts.
And that is a good point because the unpaved roads stormwater toolkit does have a whole section on right sizing drainage culverts that we're hoping the town would be able to use. Putting the 18-inch that could restrict right sizing.
Yeah, I guess maybe I might have a contrary view to my fellow commissioners, but I'm not sure. I think I don't, to me, it's more about how we would apply those right sizing tools to the culvert more than restricting it with a diameter. Or if we're going to restrict it to anything and we're worried about kind of stormwater, then we could talk about the intermittent stream or whatever that's going through and try to get at it that way versus the size of the pipe, because oftentimes the culvert may not be indicative of actually what's flowing through it.
Yeah, I think, are we saying though here that anything that's under 18 inches and also is carrying only what's been sort of considered non-jurisdictional, those are the ones that can be done under this bundled NOI. We're not necessarily saying here the size of whatever the replacement pipe is. We're just saying if the existing one is under 18, it can fall under this bundled NOI. If it's over 18, it needs its own NOI. It needs its own individual NOI. Also, if it's carrying a jurisdictional stream, is that what we're saying here? That also would need its own NOI.
I'm fainting back to what Scott just said. I was sort of thinking about just driveway culverts, as a standard, but in reality, if we're talking about the expectation of greater flows, whether it's in streams or the ditches, you're looking at needing 1/3 to a half again the size to be able to deal at all with climate change. So maybe I just retract what I said. I'm trying to find a way not to have to always do an NOI to, replace a driveway kind of culvert. I would hope that when we do it, we put a bigger one in. That's certainly what we see on Locks Pond, where, the upstream side of the ditch flows across the road because the driveway culverts can't handle the flow.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I'm saying. In this bullet, we're not anywhere saying what the size of the replacement pipe is. We're just saying if currently it's under 18 inches, the work can be done under the bundled NOI. And also any of these projects, according to how this is all gonna happen, is that the Conservation Commission will be notified that the DPW is planning to do this. We would do a site visit. And during that whole time, we can have the conversation with DPW about what size they are thinking of replacing the existing culvert with.
I hear what you're saying. I like the idea of being able to have a discussion. My fear is if we put an artificial 18-inch limit on what they can do, that we'll have one hell of a lot of 18-inch culverts when we might need.
We're not
Three-footer.
putting an 18-inch limit on what they can put in. What we're saying is any existing pipes right now that are 18 inches or smaller can be replaced under this bundled NOI. You can replace them with whatever size DPW wants, or even whatever size we sort of advise DPW that they should replace it with. That 18 inch is simply saying anything that's 18 inches or smaller right now falls under the bundled NOI. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that could work.
It doesn't say anything about what the size of the
Yeah,
replacement
you're
pipe.
staying under a certain, like the bigger ones, we're not talking about them. Yeah, maybe.
The bigger ones would need their own notice of intent, even
Alright.
if they're not, once we figure out jurisdiction, if it's bigger than 18 inches, it needs its own NOI.
I had a question just to go kind of just globally. You said that you had kind of got, is it my understanding that you went with the town to map out areas already?
We
That
went
was a, oh, sorry. Did you mean culverts or wetland areas, Mayor?
No, I meant this, like, all these things that are listed as the work that can be done, are there areas of the dirt roads that have been identified where I mean, the DPW is not here, so like, did FERCog and Angela, did they go out with the DPW to figure out already where the problem areas are?
So we've identified on a map using GIS, the most likely roads to be most vulnerable for unpaved roads.
Right.
We're waiting for the snow to melt to actually then go walk the roads to identify potential projects. But the bundle notice of intent does pertain to any roadside, any road within Shutesbury, whether it's paved or unpaved, and whether it's highly vulnerable or not. So if a road needs potholes, if it's paved and needs some pothole patching or some mowing along the side or invasive treatment along a paved road, this bundled notice of intent would still apply whether or not it's been identified as a highly problematic spot.
Okay, so similarly, under these areas, like how many have you identified so far as culvert replacement or repair?
For this project,
Mhm.
So most of the work is not going to be culvert repair or replacement. A lot of it is more designed to slow and capture water. So
Mhm.
they're making sure that ditches are properly functioning, making sure that they're sloped appropriately to not just make that water shoot down to the stream, but to slow it down, maybe installing some check dams within the streams to slow that down. Potentially adding more frequent turnouts so that the water disperses more frequently off the road rather than channeling all the way into one big culvert and going into a stream or other point location. So most of the work is designed with that in mind and not necessarily replacing culverts, because part of what we want to do is make sure that this is something that the town can do on a regular basis with their own staff. And so replacing culverts, even smaller ones, drainage ones, is expensive and a big project. So we're trying to do this more of a piecemeal, like what can they do in the little baby steps that really improve a road.
Okay, and what is the time frame for all this? I understand that you're going to wait till the snow is gone, but what is it everything going to be? Is it your hope that everything would be done by the fall, or is
Our
this a
project,
multi-year?
so this part of the project wraps up in June, And what we'll be doing this spring with the crew is looking at those highly vulnerable roads and doing some assessments and conceptually planning out improvements. So they can then work on that on their own time with their own resources. So we'll kind of get them teed up, ready to go, and then they can do it on their own when they have time and ability.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Do commissioners have any other questions about the suitable projects? We could move on to just taking a quick look at projects not suitable under the bundled NOI, which is below this one.
I wonder if I could ask Megan. So you've worked with the DPWs and have come upon a list of appropriate sites. Is that correct?
We've mapped the roads that are most likely to have erosion problems and most likely contributing sediment to your streams.
And that's provided to the commission as um, as a site of approval. So X, Y, and Z road, it breaks, it's already on the list, and they can immediately repair it. Is that kind of, after they notify us, is that kind of how the process would work?
So this is the list we're giving them is kind of a priority list for them to do work. But Angela, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bundled notice of intent is for any road that, as long as it's not in a jurisdictional stream or in a sensitive environmental area. And so it could be on just one of your paved main roads, or it could also be on these highly vulnerable roads. It's really the extent of the work. So if they're just doing basic grading on that highly vulnerable road, making sure it's graded properly to shed the water correctly, then it would be included. But if they're going to be doing a big project, if we go out and assess these highly vulnerable roads and like, this really needs a whole lot of culvert replacements and X, Y, and Z, then that might be just determined to be a really big project, and then they would come to you as a separate project. But if it's just these basic maintenance projects on any of the roads, that would be included here.
And are these bundle type of notice of intent, are they fairly common?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, they're
they
pretty
are.
common. They're pretty common for DPWs. They're also pretty common. For example, Amherst has one for UMass. UMass put together one. It sort of is this idea of often it's lists like this of this work is approved under the bundled NOI. This work needs a complete notice of intent. This work only needs you to check in with the Concom. It's a way for large organizations that do a lot of work in and around resource areas to kind of be able to get work done by categorizing. It's, I don't know, that's how I think of it. And I think this application is for a 5-year order of conditions, right?
Yep.
So it would be basically for the next 5 years, DPW would follow this procedure for coming forward with different projects that they have. And if you read, Angela presented it, but I like the idea of them, coming to us between like March and May with a list of what projects they want to do for the year. And then doing site visits to go look at those areas. And then it sounds like having Concom kind of delineate for them. That's the idea.
Maybe just to clarify, I could see how this would be confusing, that FERCog has the project on unpaved roads, and as Megan said, we're evaluating the roads, picking highly vulnerable areas, identifying BMPs that might work on those roads, and then teeing them up. The bundled NOI is kind of an umbrella that this falls under, but it covers other work too that the town is going to be doing routinely. It's something that Angela's done in her region, and you guys might be the first in Franklin County to have one for roads. I don't know if that's true, but I think so. So it just seems like a good system for establishing like a standard operating procedure between town road maintenance and the Concom and wetlands regulations. I don't know if that helps, but
Great, thank you. And who is the applicant for this notice of intent?
Town of
Uh-huh.
Shutesbury DPW.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile having them come if we're to meeting if we're going to discuss this again. And last question, what kind of comments did DEP have related to this application?
They were limited, and I believe I addressed them all. I could pull up that document if you want. Do you want to look at these projects that aren't suitable?
Yeah, let's take a quick look. To me, it's mostly, things that are new, new culverts, new roads, new ditches.
And I can remove this whole inner 50 because of your bylaw if you want me to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Anyway, that just so folks who saw what was suitable, and this is sort of a list of what would still be required, still require a full NOI.
And then ah,
Angela, what are you calling a road stream culvert?
not a drainage culvert.
Okay.
So it should say crossing, road stream crossing. That was how I was trying to differentiate the two. So you have a road stream crossing and a drainage culvert, even though they're all culverts. But it makes it easier to understand if you can kind of separate them that way. Why is this doing this? Sorry.
All right, so I thought we could bring it up, but I don't have any comments. I do have one comment. If you go down into work protocol, it is under B. Where you've got Conservation Commission shall review the project sites and applicable documentation to verify that the project is not within. I just thought there should be another bullet there for sort of bank and land underwater, BVW, IVW.
Hackett. I didn't miss one, did I?
Nope, That's good.
Oh, you wanted me to add isolated vegetated wetlands.
Yeah.
What about isolated lands subject to flooding?
Um,
Would that be the same as with bordering land subject to flooding, and you would allow work to happen in that area?
yeah, I think so. And I think referred to it as just land subject to flooding. At least that's where I saw it. So I thought it kind of encapsulate both of them with calling it that. So the only other spot where I really was trying to figure out what was going on is way at the end under mitigation measures.
Getting there.
Let's see, erosion control shall be installed as shown on the plans. So it's like in this, second sentence, starts in the second sentence, goes into the third sentence. I'm wondering what plans are we talking about? Some of this language in this section makes me think it was for an actual project, but maybe I'm just not reading
So
that
let's
right.
say they go for chapter 90 funds to do something, and they actually have it designed, but it meets the bundled NOI, you would have site plans. But I could,
You could just say erosion controls shall be installed as shown on the project, the specific project site plans. It's just the way it was written made it feel like there were some plans that went with this NOI, and I was a little confused.
what if it says erosion control shall be, oh, I have to keep installed as evidently needed to control runoff from the site?
Sure. That makes sense. And then, what was I looking at the next paragraph?
And I'll clarify that too, so that if the town uses a contractor, the contractor is responsible.
Um, in the next paragraph where you've got natural heritage, yeah, that's exactly. I was like, why is that in there?
Missed that. Thank you.
And then you do have bordering land subject to flooding there, so you might want to just take out bordering so it includes both isolated and you could just have land subject to flooding. And then there and sort of way in the beginning is where I think we should also just list our aura, our adjacent upland resource area as another area where we would allow use of the bundled NOI.
It's AU.
AURA, so it's adjacent upland resource area. Okay. All right, do any other commissioners have any other sort of specific comments?
MD's had his hand up. I don't know if MD is a commissioner or not.
Yeah, I think that's Miriam. She's public, we'll get to public comments in a few minutes. But it sounds like in general, you guys are gonna kind of take another look at it in regard to the bylaw. And, so we'll probably end up continuing, but, Scott?
Yeah, thanks. Going back to the section on things that were not covered here in the bundled NOI, I'm wondering the creation of new stormwater detention ponds, that's a common need at sometimes here on many of our gravel roads. So I'm just wondering how are the creation of I saw the cleaning of existing ones as I in the bundled NOI draft, but for the creation of new ones, how is that being handled? Is that part of this or is that not?
Yes, hold on. Oh, where'd it go? 1 second, please.
Yeah, well, I see under not suitable, we've got new stone riprap ditch / swale. Is that what you mean, Scott?
I believe also no
I
plans.
saw this as different. You know what I'm thinking of, are like the detention ponds that we have adjacent to roads where, the sediment washes down into them. So I saw that as different, but maybe that's what's intended. I'm not sure.
So working with Mark, you will notice that there are approved plans and documents. So Mark gave the okay for DPW to use these green infrastructure BMP design standards for paved roads, and then the unpaved road specs for unpaved roads. And this is the one PVPC did. I believe Beth is familiar with this from Amherst. But it does have a bunch of green infrastructure, how to use it guide, sizing, locations. And they're all, tree boxes, bioswales, things that just promote infiltration and don't have a point source discharge that will be permitted under this bundled notice of intent and allow your DPW to install them in accordance with the plans and the specs in the back. Both documents, the unpaved and the paved, are meant to be utilized and installed locally with local staff to reduce costs. So you have your conceptual design, your tables on how to size it. The NOI covers the installation, it covers the work, and then you have a lot more stormwater mitigation that is infiltration and removing both total suspended solids as well as reducing phosphorus loading. Does that make sense?
So those installation of those as something new is under suitable projects under the bundle NOI? Really?
As long as they have the 50-foot setback. It falls into the stormwater number 7. Redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all retrofits and improvements shall follow the green infrastructure and the stormwater BMPs for dirt roads. And then the setback of 50 feet. Except for BLSF and ILSF.
Yeah, I guess I just don't see anything under the suitable projects under the bundled NOI that talks about this stuff.
Oh, you're the first person to raise that. We'll add that wording to the suitable projects.
Okay.
I could put it as any stormwater retrofit in compliance with approved plans and documents, or you want me to spell them out?
That's, yeah, approved plans and documents that are attached
Attached.
to the bundled
Uh,
NOI.
Yeah, attached. I'll put attached BMP designs. And it is critical to note that the PVPC green infrastructure one can only be used on paved roads. Any sort of green infrastructure will fail on a dirt road. And I have a whole nother PowerPoint all about that I'd be happy to present on a different day.
Yeah, I think we're ready to take public comment. Miriam?
Hi, thank you. Oh, there we go. Hi. I'm just gonna read through some comments and I'm sorry if they're a little out of order because I was editing them as you guys discussed some issues. This is Miriam DeFont, 74 Pratt Corner Road, and I am making comments only on behalf of myself. So I just want to make a couple observations. One, that we know that there are many resource areas that are crossing roads in Shutesbury, as we know from the experience on the Conservation Commission. I noted that there was some discussion about a mapped or an inventory of crossings as part of the NOI. I didn't see it in the packet. Maybe I overlooked it. But if it isn't included, it would be really great if that was available to the public so that we could comment on it if we had concerns about any of those crossings and whether or not they were jurisdictional. And as has been discussed, I was concerned that the notice of intent did not mention any of the resource areas that are protected specifically under the bylaw, but not under the act. It didn't seem like there was any discussion or recognition about the bylaw and the regulations, but it seems like that's going to be getting addressed. But of concern is the fact that the bylaw protects both intermittent streams and isolated vegetated wetlands, but also seeps and springs, and the aura as a protected resource. And I'm concerned about what provisions in this notice of intent are addressing those resource areas. Under the section around delineations and site visits, I'm concerned because the procedure involves possibly a springtime site visit, but also perhaps site visits before work is going to commence. And some of the resource areas, such as intermittent streams and vernal pools, really are seasonally dependent for their delineation. So if work was going to begin, let's say in August, a vernal pool or an intermittent stream might not be evident. Additionally, if the commission on a given site visit might not be equipped with enough data in order to make a determination about a vernal pool or an isolated stream, which ideally should be documented and observed over time. I'm not sure how this would work in practice, particularly during dry periods. The other question I have for delineations and site visits is, it sounds like possibly a single commissioner might be making a final determination. And I don't think all commissioners would have the same level of expertise in identifying and delineating complex wetland delineations. It would be ideal if we had an agent, but we don't. And if two commissioners were present and they were making a final determination during a site visit, I'm wondering whether or not that might be an open meeting law violation. In addition, in the discussion around some of these adjustments about what might be an allowed project or a not allowed project, one of my concerns about tying what's allowed to the size of culverts and to whether or not it is just a drainage culvert is that it may lead to isolated streams being underestimated because the work might be done during times when there is a dry period, or there may be a tendency to underestimate it and regard more of them as drainage channels rather than intermittent streams, or to undersize culverts, as was brought up before, in order to stay under that threshold. So I would really encourage the commissioner not to have it tied to the size of culverts because, yeah, I think it's enough said. In terms of the aura and vernal pools, I'm also concerned that there's no modification in terms of performance standards or procedures for the aura vernal pools, although they're a sensitive environmental area. And I would recommend narrowing the list of permitted activities if they're in the aura of a vernal pool in order to ensure that those sensitive areas are more protected. Under the DEP comments, and I'm almost done, I know I have a lot of comments here. There was a mention about flow protection devices and the maintenance summary for them to be included in the documents, but those were not available to the public. So if there is a maintenance manual that's going to be included for beaver dam flow protection devices, I'd like to ask that that be made available before the next public hearing. There was also some discussion among the DP comments about the maintenance of stormwater features that might involve the removal of sediments. However, as we know on the unpaved roads, many of the country drains require maintenance that does involve the removal of sediments and stones. So I'm not really sure how this could be conditioned in a way as to not result in removal, as the comment suggests. This comment said that well, you can go back and look at the DEB comments. This was in comment number 4. So I think that there needs to be some greater clarification about what kind of alterations in a resource area would be permitted on unpaved roads where you do have, it's not just cleaning sediments out of a paved channel or an armored channel. You just have cuts in the bank or of the road or in the ground. In terms of that list of allowed work, the other comments I had were, there's some discussion about mechanical mowing being a part of the procedures that are allowed. And I just want to make an observation that we know that mechanical mowing does increase the risk of spreading invasives, including invasive knotweed. And we've seen issues where the highway department has mowed and has led to an entrenchment of knotweed patches. The other items on the list of allowed work that I had questions about, one was the maintenance of head walls, which to me sounds like alteration of bank. Usually repairs to head walls is considered to be bank. And it seems like that should not be included in a list of allowed work. It should require NOI. Additionally, the grading of slopes is not really well defined, and changes in grade is considered an alteration under the bylaws. So I'm not sure how this could be allowed without a permit, because there would be a need to determine whether or not the grading changes are going to affect hydrology. To just give you an example of how this can apply in real world conditions, I just would like to share with the commission my own experience on my own property on Pratt Corner Road, where we have a vernal pool that exists on our property, and the edges of the vernal pool are outside of the right-of-way. So it is totally within our property and does not come under the jurisdiction of the town. However, in the spring of 2019, when there was some stormwater erosion on our road and the highway department was repairing a swale, they decided to bring in heavy equipment when my husband and I were not home, and they dug a channel from the vernal pool to the road and took out part of our stone wall and completely drained the vernal pool during the breeding season, which led to the vernal pool being empty of breeding species for 2 years. It's finally rebounded. For whatever reason, the highway department believed that that vernal pool, which was holding back water, was somehow contributing to erosion on the road. The concern I have is that we weren't notified, and it would be nice to have some notification procedure for landowners if there's going to be work in resource areas or near resource areas. So landowners could be aware and could communicate with the highway department before the work happens. If there's some concerns, we have put up signs and we have asked the highway department not to mow in that area during the breeding season for that reason. I think the problem is that there are a lot of resource areas. It's difficult for the highway department to know when they're out there doing work, when they're encountering a resource area, and they need guidance. But I'm a little concerned that this NOI may not identify all of the possible areas where some guidance is going to be needed. So, okay, thank you, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Miriam. I guess I feel like on that note, I think you guys have a few things to look at with the bundled NOI, and if you're in agreement, we will continue the hearing until our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks on the 27th. Does that work for you, Angela and Megan and Andrea?
Let me check quick.
Bob, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I certainly love the idea of fast tracking and working closely with the DPW. But I think it's important that the DPW be represented at these hearings.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I talked to him earlier and I thought he said he was gonna be here. So I just want to make sure that he's here for the next meeting. So I'd like to check with him to make sure he's available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we're back to having meetings every 2 weeks. So we have 2 in April also. If
I'm
he can't make the next one.
available. I am available on the 27th, but I would not be available April 10th, if that is when.
Yeah, that's our next, yeah, that would be our next meeting, would be April 10th.
Yeah, I'm unavailable that evening. So I can do the 27th.
right, well, why
I'm
don't-
not available on the 27th, but I don't think that should stop you guys. But
Let's make sure Dave is available, because I think that he
Okay.
needs to be here.
All right, well, we'll continue the hearing to the 27th
Okay.
officially at this point. If you guys need to change it, just get back in touch with us, but, so.
I think
it
just
sounds
as
like-
a backdrop, though, the concerns that we heard, I think that the benefit of the bundled NOI is that you'd be establishing a routine thing that's happening each year, and so you'd have the idea of the work that's going to happen. You'd be able to have that list potentially publicly available, and there would be more consideration before the work happens of impacts to resources and stuff. And I don't know how you've been doing it now, but in most towns, sometimes things just happen, like that resident described, and hopefully this would set up a better line of communication.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The whole idea is a move in the right direction, just in terms of communicating with DPW and having a routine of them, submitting a list to us and us doing the site visits and looking at the sites, it's just that is going to be improvement. So, so anyway, I need a motion to
Oh, can I
continue
add
the,
one quick
Oh.
thing?
yep.
The head wall question is covered under the limited project provision that are included. So that is the minuscule work that could happen in bank, but in theory, it's I'm tired. I can't get the word out. Negligible,
Negligible.
because it's very temporary.
Okay.
And that's why it falls under the limited project provision, because that does allow you to work in resource areas and not meet performance standards for very specific activities as long as you follow the provisions. And then the DEP comment that she had brought up, Mark's comment specifically had to do with cleaning culverts and not swales. So that was addressed by, if you're cleaning the culvert, yeah, remove like the sticks and leaves, but don't remove the natural sediment because you want that continuity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That is what Mark was talking about. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I need a motion to continue the hearing until March 27th. I think we have something at 7:15, so why don't we say 7:45 p.m.
Motion to
moved.
continue the hearing till 7:45 on March 27th.
Okay, second?
I'll
We got two
second it.
motions. Okay, motion from Mayor, seconded by Bob. Great. Douglas,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
and Wilson. Aye. All right, great. Well, we'll hopefully see everybody in 2 weeks if DPW can come. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I just have to let my dog in.
Sorry, I almost just ended the meeting for everybody because I'm still host.
Could you make me host?
I'm working on it right now. One sec.
Says I'm host. Thank you.
All right, awesome. You are very welcome. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Next on the agenda is to talk again about Mark Whiteman's conservation restriction for lot H151. And I hope everybody has gotten the latest version. And so there's a red line version that was sent around, and then also a Word version that was a clean copy and a PDF. I think I sent those around just this afternoon. And then also Donna McNichol had made comments, and I sent those to you guys too. So Donna's here to talk to us about her comments. And unfortunately, Mark was going to come tonight, but he can't make it. So let me get my. Donna, do you want to just quickly review your comments?
Sure. So a lot of my comments were somewhat generic and making sure that this becomes a final document when we're ready to get it signed. Title conservation restriction needs to go at the very top. The comments on taxes, instructions, comments on links and the watermarks, model CER watermark. You know, somebody needs to get rid of all those. I mean, certainly my legal assistant can do it, but I'm assuming there's somebody that's working on it that can. But if that doesn't work, we can do it at the office. But the point is just to sort of get rid of all the superfluous great stuff when you're filling them out, but that needs to be taken away before they get in the registry of deeds. But I also will note that EEA asks that if you make any sort of significant or material changes to the document, that you do leave that redlined when it goes to EEA for signatures, so that they know what changes you made. And I think the two places that may be important, or at least two of the places that I think is a great example of where that would be important, is what you decide to do on forestry practices and what you decide to do on solar installations. So when we get to those sections, you can talk about it, but if you're going to make changes from the CR that's drafted in those sections, you'd probably want to leave those red lines in. So my understanding, we now have a survey of the property that'll be attached as Exhibit B. We did get meets and bounds descriptions. The only thing that we need to do is compare the meets and bounds with the survey to make sure they're consistent. Sometimes just typos and stuff happen and one doesn't match the other. And so just a quick, I can do that in my office unless one of you wants to do it. Just let me know, you know, if you have a to-do list for me on it, but make sure that the meets and bounds that Mark sent match the survey that's done. A lot of the generic town, mayor language, that kind of thing's been cleaned up. Thank you very much. But just one quick, final read through to make sure all of that's dealt with would be great. There were a couple typos I noticed that spell check didn't catch until when it should be unto kind of thing. So, but those have been taken care of, although I did find another typo that I'll point out while we're doing it. Exhibit A will specifically be the meets and bounds of the property. So it's just going to say, you know, the property on whatever the address is, I can't remember what it is, Leverett Road, bounded and described as follows, and then the CAD meets and bounds, as long as it matches, will just be put into Exhibit A after that language. Baseline report, they're still working on that, is that correct?
Yeah,
All right, so the only thing that I would point out is when you're approving the document, it says right in the document that the baseline report, the Conservation Commission states that it's accurate and complete. So just make sure, you know, you give it a good eyeball to make sure you really do feel like it's accurate and complete. So then the things that I think still need discussion are section 3B11. We can start there. Um, 3B11 is permitted activities of forest management. And I don't know what you want in paragraph 11 around, it's going to be 14.77 acres. And I don't know what you want about forest management practices on those 15 acres.
yeah, this is, so we've looked at the CR a number of times. And actually, I can't remember in the end what we all decided about this last time, but I'm opposed to it a bit. And then I actually looked at the Damari one, and under forestry, the first statement in the Damari one is something similar to with prior written approval from the grantee, which in this one, it doesn't have that as sort of the start to this description of forest. So if we are going to go with allowing forestry, I think I may even want that to be the first sentence so that there is approval from us. Because that's the first sentence for the solar part, which is number 13, the first sentence, with prior written approval of the grantee. Wait, I think I have the Damari one here somewhere.
Yeah, that's perfectly legitimate to add, and that can just be added to, I don't know whether you're gonna pick permitted activities, no forest activities, or requirement of a forward, or requiring a forest stewardship plan. It's getting late. So, you know, I think you all just need to decide which of those you think is appropriate. I don't know these 15 acres. I don't know, you know, what's around them. I don't know how you get into them or anything of that nature. So, you know, I think that that's specific to all of you, whether you think, forest management should go on the property, whether there should be a requirement of forest stewardship plan, or whether there shouldn't be any, given the size of the lot. It's just up to you. And what you think is best for conservation purposes.
My recollection of our conversation with Mark, and we would just need to follow up with him. I thought when we had talked about this, we did express concerns over how that was worded and the size of the lot. And my recollection, Beth, is that he had indicated that maybe that provision was not as important. And I guess I left that feeling that in the next revision, that probably wouldn't read the same and wouldn't, that we wouldn't have the provisions allowing it. That being said, I would be okay having it if it was, you know, subject to the review from Concom, and approval that way. But it's a pretty small lot, so I kind of wonder if it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze on this, just you know, to entertain, you know, logging plans for such a small property. But
I don't even know. I don't think forest stewardship plans are required. Are they on 15 acres on a lot that size?
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought it was 20 acres under the forestry management plans.
Yeah, I think you're right.
God, I thought we talked about allowing some take of trees for personal use.
Yeah,
we
that's
did.
in, I was just gonna
That's
say that.
separate.
Yeah, that's a separate, that's C. You know, there's
For
three
farm.
different parts to the forestry section of this, and C is harvesting for personal use. The sustainable cutting of trees only for the grantor's personal use, not to exceed, and then there's where you can fill in the board feet, or cords per year.
I'd
And-
say that'd be fine and not have you know, a forestry component then.
So delete A and B and put with the prior written approval of the Conservation Commission under harvest for personnel use, and then have a discussion. Mark, my understanding is Mark's gonna be at the next meeting with how much board feet or cords you're talking about, which would need to be filled in. Is that? So you know, I think that's what I would tell him we're doing with 11 and have a discussion on whether he has any issue with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Seems like that's what the consensus is.
All right, so A and B are gone. C will just be there and it'll say with the prior written approval of the Conservation Commission, the sustainable cutting of trees only for the grantor's personal use, blah, blah, blah.
or a prior approval from the grantee. That seems to be who they keep referring to us
Yeah, we
as.
can say grantee instead of Conservation Commission, that's fine.
What it says all over the document.
All right. All right, so then the next section, all right, that takes care of forestry. Is section 13 in the same, section B about permitted activities. And that's the one on green energy.
Yeah, that one, I like that it starts with prior written approval of the grantee. It's such a small parcel. Again, I can't imagine that they would want to put up a big solar field in there. Then there's this weird capacity limit. That's the last sentence that I didn't actually quite understand what it meant. It says, shall be limited to a capacity not higher than that necessary to meet or exceed up to 20% at the time of installation, the power requirements of the permitted acts and uses. So does that mean the only energy that could be produced within the CR would be for activities that are being done in the CR? Because
Right, but you can have that 20% that can go to the grid. Right, so in high capacity times, you can have a 20% additional power being produced, and if you do, then that can go to the grid. And
I'm trying to
circulate
imagine,
back on the property.
I'm trying to imagine what permitted acts and uses would require any energy. This is like forest land, right? We're not allowing them to do anything on it. So that seems kind of weird.
I guess for me, on this one, I'm just trying to think about the intent here. And,
Yeah.
and as I understood it, I think the intent is to set this aside as conservation land, to protect it as forest land, protect the forest, protect the wetlands. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense to have a provision in here for this type of activity. If, I'm trying to envision some future requests where we would be allowing for that in such a small parcel. Any type of solar field would be, I think, pretty impactful on the lot, as small as it is. So I'm just kind of thinking, if we're trying, if the highest and best use of this would be for energy project, then it's not a very good fit for a CR. If it's a good fit for the CR, then it's probably not a great fit for this. So I would get rid of that provision. But
Well, and I think the other issue is my understanding is he's got a carve out for residential. That's a fairly nice size lot, right? It's about 4 acres, is that correct? So, I mean, if he wants solar for a house, there's more than enough room in that 4-acre parcel. And then of course it'd go on the roof and all the other options. So I'm not convinced that a solar array is necessary in the conservation area, given the size of the property and that it'd be a residential use. But it's up to all of you.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I
So
think
delete 13. Yeah,
sure.
yes. Am I getting yeses all around here?
I think.
Yes.
I mean, what I'll do is I'll email Mark, or you can, however you choose, to let him know that these are what was determined on these provisions that I raised in my comment period. Then in section 9, I wanted to make sure it was changed to 60 days for municipalities, given that you're a municipality, so you don't have to give, the notice provision isn't 30 days. So the 30 days comes out and that becomes 60.
Yep, that was changed in the red line version.
Okay, yeah, I've got my older version. I was gonna ask that. And then, like they said, I really need to make sure you review the baseline report. And then the only other thing I found getting ready for tonight is in 14B. I think effect is supposed to be effect. But I'm not positive.
Liberally construed in order to affect the purposes.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's affect.
All right.
The effect is what happens. Effect with an A is a verb, I think. Something like that.
You get the diagram of that sentence for extra credit. We don't do that anymore, do we?
No, they don't.
No extra credit?
Well, no one diagrammed sentence. It went away with trying to figure out
Oh.
how to calculate square roots.
Right, yeah, it's gone. It's not in there anymore.
So
That's
did-
just curriculum, not the way it used to be.
In cursive, right?
I was just gonna say, who's old enough to remember cursive?
really, me, sad but true. So did anybody have any questions about it for me? Other than these basically sort of talking points, concerns, things they thought it should be in here that aren't?
Did we ever put in writing what type of payment will be involved? In the beginning, there's sort of a generic thing.
Yeah, it doesn't say, I mean, it appears that there won't be a payment.
Don't
That
we want a
it will be
payment?
a gift to the town. And the way that works out is then he gets an appraisal of what the CR is worth. All you have to do is sign saying that you received the gift. You do not agree to the value. That's between him and the IRS. We have nothing to do with that. So he would gift it to the town. You would sign off that it was given to you as a gift, and then he would get an appraisal and deal with his taxes on what kind of deduction he gets for that gift to the town.
Well,
But
we had talked about, and Mark had been kind of, I think, on board with this, or at least he understood why we were asking for sort of an endowment. And that's
I
for
saw that.
doing future inspections, annual inspections that are typically required of all CRs. And I think we had thought about $10,000 because I don't know, we saw somewhere similar numbers. It's 4% interest a year, which is $400, which typically can cover monitoring. So I don't know where that language goes. I don't know if that goes into
It
the
would go
CR
in
or
the statement of the grant. It would go in the statement of the grant. That in addition to the gift of the land, Mr. Whitman will be paying to the Town Conservation Commission $10,000 for the expense of monitoring the conservation restriction. So yeah, we can put that in if that's what's agreed to, and I'll add that to the list that I'm gonna send him on what we discussed tonight, that would be added to statement of grant.
that
Great.
sounds good.
Yeah, Mark, just say Mark had asked to come to one of our April meetings, just so you guys know. So we'll be talking about this one more time. And that would be perfect. We can kind of
And
go
did
over the
we-
final things.
Did we get a response on whether there's a mortgage on it or not?
I didn't see anything.
Okay. Because that's another provision that has to be addressed. Anything else? So I'll send an email to Mark tomorrow saying that the Conservation Commission discussed the CR, that we agree with the red line changes that have been made. In addition to those, we want forest management except for personal use to be stricken. And then, do you want to propose cord feet or do you want him to propose it?
So the endowment,
Yeah, no, not the endowment, the, cord feet. Because remember, that's blank in there. How many board feet or how many cords he can take
Cord.
out?
Oh.
Sorry, I was.
Yeah. So that's something we should talk about for a few minutes. I saw that in the Damari CR, they sort of isolated a section of the CR area that where there could be any personal forestry, and then they said 4 cords a year. But then in this draft CR, there's this little calculation that says like, what did it say? Half of the acres. So this is 14 acres. So half would be more like 7 cords a year. But I'm not so familiar with, how much is an accord. Maybe Scott, do you know a little bit more about like what if we'd said 4 cords a year, for example, like how many trees is that?
I'm trying to think. I think a log truck, I want to say, has like 7. That's my
A logging
guess.
truck?
Like,
That's a
you know,
lot
like
of
a,
wood.
right. It's like a logging truck full is about, when you cut up, I think it's supposed to 7-ish cords.
All right, well, that's more than anybody with a wood stove would need a year.
Depends on how efficient your wood stove is, but yeah, I mean, that's,
It's
That's
gonna
on
be
the
a new
heavy side.
house, so yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
I think for personal use, I mean, it seems like half that would probably be pretty reasonable.
So if we went with 4, like what's in the Damari CR, 4 cords a year? Does that seem? I'm happy to go with them.
You can propose that to Mark and see if he says something different.
Okay.
Did you want to designate somewhere in the survey where it could be taken from, or from anywhere on the 14 acres, 15 acres?
I guess I just want to, well, I mean, obviously there's wetland areas. So maybe we do want to take a look at the map of the 14 acres. Yeah, we might want to designate, or at least include language in there that you,
In compliance?
yeah, in compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act and Shutesbury bylaw.
I just Googled it. It says if there's straight logs, it's 8 cords. If it's kind of a mix, it's 7.5.
Good to know.
All right, so we're forestry, personal use only, 4 cords, strike remaining sections A and B, and the removal of the 4 cords in compliance with the Wetland Protection Act and the bylaw.
Yep,
With
sounds great.
with written notice to the prior written approval of the grantee.
Yes.
Do you want to be involved in that? You know, like when he's gonna go cut, or whoever is gonna go
2
cut.
trees.
Yeah, do we really want to be involved in that? Is it gonna be Scout's honor that they cut 4 cords? Or not?
Let me see what,
How about with prior written notice? And
Maybe
then if
that
you
would be
want to
better.
be involved, you can, and if you don't, or if you suspect that more than 4 cords are being taken out, then you can go investigate.
Yeah. That keeps them half honest.
yeah.
Okay, and then on green energy, remove completely. And then in the grant, one statement of grant, add $10,000 contributed to the Concom. Yes?
Yes.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else. Be good to get this finally done. This has been on our plate for a while.
I did just want to say that, having looked at many conservation restrictions, this is quite a good one. It's we certainly got a lot of bang for our buck. It's a beautiful piece of land, and its preservation is really a great gift that we're getting from Mark in this case.
Good. Yeah, I don't think the planning board does this very often.
So I'm gonna ask him about the mortgage because we still don't have an answer to that. Prior written notice of forestry, personal use, 4 cords, in compliance with the wetland protection and bylaw, green energy takeout completely. In Article 1 statement, add $10,000 contributed to the Concom, fix the typo, effect, clean up the document, and I'll just, I don't know whether they've been doing this, I believe, so I'll mention that at least that what we would like that done. And then Exhibit A will be the meets and bounds, and Exhibit B will be the survey. And we're not gonna require him to do anything about forestry in the survey because of the minimal amount we're allowing to be taken out.
Mhm. Sounds good.
Yes?
Yes, it's getting there. It's getting to a final document. Yay.
All right, I will, I'll copy you, Beth, so you can get it to the commission. I'll send that out to Mark tomorrow and say this is our discussion, and any issues he has can be discussed when he attends the meeting. But this is
Okay,
the
and
document that we would like to go with.
yeah, that sounds great. He said he can't come on the 27th, so it would probably be the first meeting in April that we'll put him on the agenda for, which is the 10th. Just so you know, Donna, because he probably want you to be there. Hopefully you can come on the 10th.
Yeah, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I think it's fine.
Okay,
I'll let you know if it's not.
okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Anything else for me? No, we're good?
Oh, yeah, great. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll get the email out and we'll see where it goes.
Great. Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
You too. All right, let's just move a few things really quickly. I know it's already 9:25. Number 7 on our agenda is the Army Corps of Engineers soil and groundwater testing at the library site. And this went through where they asked us what to file. Mateo and I told them RDA. They were on their way to do an RDA, and then all of a sudden we got an email from, which I think everybody's seen, from Army Corps saying that they aren't required because they're a federal agency to file anything under the Wetlands Protection Act or under local bylaw kind of things. And I did email the woman back and ask for the actual sort of provision or policy, and she didn't send anything. I think you guys saw the email. What did she say? Tiny. just a general rule that state and local regulations don't apply to Army Corps because it's a federal agency. You know, it's hard to argue against these kinds of things. I've gone through it with state agencies like UMass and DOT, and they'll just come straight up and say, nope, we don't abide by local bylaws, because if we did, we'd be spending all of our time doing a butter notification and stuff like that. And so you can only push them so far. And so I gave it a shot to try to at least get the policy from her, and didn't even really get that. But I don't know.
That didn't
Anybody?
bother me very much, because she did seem willing to share what their intentions were and, you know, what they were gonna go do, no?
Yeah, I mean, she gave, I don't know if that was in some of the emails that people saw, but I think there's somewhere they gave a little bit of a description of what they're planning to do. I
So
should
if that
did you guys-
doesn't, if that doesn't answer our, you know, whatever we would obtain through an RDA, can't we just go back and forth with her a little bit and get our own questions answered? Don't you think she'd be willing to do that? I mean, she doesn't have to have a gun to her head, eh?
No, it's hard to just with questions back and forth to really get an idea of, you know, you don't have a plan in front of you, a map sort of showing you where exactly they're putting the wells, and also just access. They're gonna have to go through the construction site, which actually is a good thing because the road is so reinforced at this point because of the construction site. But then as you go back on that road, there definitely are some pretty wet areas. I think it was last time that they were doing this kind of stuff, they rutted up the road a lot. You know, yeah, we can basically have a conversation with her and try to get some good
Talk about
BMP
timing
kind
and,
of things.
yeah, you know, they may be more flexible than they seem.
They might. I know there was some email where, or I don't know if it was a conversation where they talked a bit about what they're gonna do. So anyway, I'll try to get more information and more of a description and send it to you guys.
Yeah,
I know it's getting late. And then the only other thing is a more exciting thing is so the Eversource work on the power line. Did you hear about the MEPA application for that? No. So work along the power line that crosses Pratt Corner Road. Eversource is proposing to do a lot of vegetation removal along the edges to almost open it up a lot more. Part of the whole big project they're doing is maintenance to the towers. It's building of access roads. It's a giant project and it goes through a bunch of towns. So they submitted to MEPA. And I think we talked about this because I think we talked about this at the last meeting because Michael DiChiara was kind of asked by the
Right.
select board to put together our comments on the ENF that was submitted to MEPA. And so I did work with him on the comments to include things that had to do with the commission. And then Miriam actually submitted her own comments as a resident. She just created comments, submitted them to the state, which is great. So that was the MEPA part of it. And I think I did share with you guys that eventually the whole project will come to the Concom as a notice of intent. I think the date that they had in the ENF was like sometime in 2026. So we're not going to see it for a while. But it will eventually, you know, come to us. And so then we'll really have a good chance to look at the impacts to resource areas from it. But meanwhile, just last week, we got an email from them about this project saying that in the end, they're going to be looking for mitigation, large amounts of mitigation. And so they're asking towns for ideas.
What does large amounts of mitigation equate to?
It equates to things like my two ideas so far are, there's this property on Wendell Road that came forward a bit recently where the homeowner is wanting to protect and preserve the land. There was a little bit of a few emails, and Mateo lives right across the street, so he was interested in it. You know, that's just a resident coming forward and saying this very large, wonderful piece of property they'd like preserved, but they haven't talked to anybody, like even Kestrel, about grants or anything. So that's a real beginning of a project. This is the kind of thing where we could take a project like that and fund it. You know, buy that piece of land for the town. So that was one I was thinking of. The other is just Southbrook. Instead of asking for more MVP funds for the construction the second year, you know, we're kind of in the process now for the MVP application this year, but say we don't get that MVP. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting my grants mixed up. CPA, we're talking CPA for Southbrook, and what if we don't get it? For, you know, say the construction portion of it. That that would be I feel like that also would be a good project to propose to them. So that's the kind of things that we're talking about.
Another one
Um,
might be that culvert on Montague Road below the dam we removed,
Yes,
Dudleyville Dam. We've got that weird little culvert still there under the road.
yeah, that would be good too, because with that, I think last year they applied for an MVP, Becky applied for MVP funding and didn't get it for that
Right,
culvert.
right.
So that's a good one, because there's probably a little bit of research already done on it.
Yeah, I wonder on the requirements for the mitigation, Beth, if we know more about like what it would have to be, because you know, like what you said, the Southbrook project is recreation, but I don't know if improving recreation is good mitigation for what they're doing. Maybe it is, I'm not sure. The property on Wendell Road is already protected by conservation easements. And so I think our purchase, and I think the easements open it to public access, is my understanding too. So the town's purchase might be a really good thing. It might be a good fit for the mitigation. But I'm not sure, again, exactly what they're looking for. If it's additional protections, it probably wouldn't be, because I think the land's already protected. But it would just be good to know more about like what the mitigation is, so we can think about some idea. Because sounds like a great opportunity. I just don't know what's a good fit.
Yeah, I can read you what it says. I think you guys, hopefully, I always forget what I've sent to you when I try to send you.
You may have emailed it, Beth. I don't recall seeing it, but I'll take a look.
Yeah, she's got, she talks about the project, and then she just says, in the meantime, we're seeking opportunities to provide wetland mitigation for the forested wetland conversion, that's what they call it, and are looking to the conservation commissions in each town crossed by the project for suggestions on possible projects / land in town that may provide such an opportunity. For example, and then she's got culvert replacements, daylighting projects, land preservation. Then she just put etc. So that's what they're thinking. So she does say wetland mitigation. So,
Yeah,
but if you're buying land that where you're preserving wetland, but also a culvert, which is certainly a wetland project, but
sure.
even the work that we did propose in Southbrook, a lot of it had to do with kind of protecting wetlands in terms of bridge replacement and bog bridging and stuff.
Those are good. Another one might be, and I don't know, I have no idea where they are on this, but some of the dam safety requirements at the end of Lake Wyola there.
Mhm.
They've got leaks on the dam. You know,
Yeah, that's
around
another CPA, Mark Rivers.
Yeah, so
applied
I
for
don't know,
CPA
what
funds.
progress, where they are and all of that, but that might be one. And then another one might be some further work on the North Cove, where we've got sediment out the yin yang coming in there. and it's a
Mhm.
multi-gazillion dollar gorilla that I don't know if they have enough planning done to then, flag out portions of that. Like also they need to if they're gonna fix that problem, they need to get land above it, that even goes into Wendell. So that might be something that the two towns could work on where some of that land is set aside to take some of that water and get rid of the sediment before it hits the lake. So I don't know, something there maybe.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'm sure Wendell's part of this whole
Mm-hmm.
where the power line goes, I'm pretty sure. Um, okay,
You know,
those are
I
all
kind of
good.
want,
I can, just respond to her with a very general email, just listing all of these things and
Tell her we can spend all their money.
yeah, right?
right.
No problem.
Spend their money. Yeah, we'll take it all. If the other towns aren't jumping on it.
I wonder, eh, just looping back to the conversation we had earlier about the town's interest in, doing work on some of these perpetual problem gravel roads that are impacting resource areas. And I think they are forested wetlands. I think about Montague Road as being one. I think about Wendell Road as being one. There are others too. Brett Corner would be another. And so I wonder, are there some mitigation measures that could be funded this way to protect those resources and help the town with some of their, lessen their maintenance costs for these gravel roads? I think that could be a real win-win.
Yeah, we could talk with the other group that was here earlier, the FERCog
Right.
people, about all the places they identified.
Right. If we could fund some ways to make them more resilient, because right now I just look at what, I drive Wendell all the time, but it's, a large part of the road is washing into the wetlands as we speak, just because it's, our winters have changed so much and it's raining. It's just amazing the erosion taking place down some of those steep slopes, but I think there are some things that could be done that would keep that from occurring, or at least minimize it.
Yeah,
Lots of
just on
projects.
that same note, Scott, the Town Lake Wyola Erosion Subcommittee is looking at a lot of different things on that, different types of gravel, crowning the road to get the water off of the road as quickly as possible so it doesn't become a corridor of where it picks up speed and sediment. So there should be some conclusions coming out of that sometime in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, so taking some of that work that Bob is mentioning, combined with FERCog, I bet there are a suite of things that could really help the town and actually, protect forested wetlands here too, in addition to all the other suggestions that were there. So
Yeah, well, what's great about our list is it covers everything. And I think maybe that's good because they can look at that and sort of pinpoint what type of project makes more sense as mitigation for what they're doing. Is it land acquisition and preserving, a wetland area, or is it more like helping with road maintenance and stuff? Great. Thank you, people. That's very helpful. All right. I hate to say it, but I don't think we're gonna get to the regulations tonight. Thought we were, but it's 9:40 at night. So hopefully at our next meeting, we've got, yeah, because the CR is not even coming back to the next meeting. So I think our next meeting will be a little lighter. We'll be able to get to the regulations. All right, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, while we were on the subject of classes earlier related to MACC, I was wondering, our circuit rider had offered to do some like an in-house training. I was wondering if you had a chance to hear back from him.
Yeah, that kind of fell apart because he couldn't come that night that we were gonna do it, and yeah, I haven't gotten back to him. I think I asked him if he could come not on a meeting night and do just a special training. Yeah, and he said he was gonna reach out to some other towns and try to do like a training that he'd invite a few different towns, Concom to come to a night that would just be training. But I'll check in with him.
Okay, doke. Would that be in person or via Zoom?
He likes in person, but but I can tell him that maybe it would be easier for our folks if it was a Zoom kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with in person too, if that's what's
Right.
done. Just put that out there.
Okay. All right. I'll email him. All right. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
Great. Con,
Aye.
Fox,
Bye.
Douglas,
Hi.
Rowan,
Aye.
and Wilson. Aye. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks,
Bye.
commissioners. Good night.
Good night.